Photographer didn't know the lioness was behind him. What she did next was shocking. The photographer crouched low, lens trained on the young cubs exploring the clearing, unaware of the subtle movements behind him. A faint rustle in the tall savanna grass went unnoticed, masked by the calls of distant birds. For a moment the world seemed still, punctuated only by the soft padding of paws and the cubs' tentative sniffing of the earth. The cubs tumbled and rolled near a cluster of acacia trees, their small bodies illuminated by the warm golden light of late afternoon. Each tiny step seemed fragile, exploratory, but full of curiosity. Unseen, the adult lioness moved with an elegance that belied her size, her eyes fixed on the photographer. She had been resting in the shade, hidden among the grass and branches, observing the scene. Her muscles rippled subtly under her tawny coat as she shifted, the ground beneath her barely disturbed. The photographer focused on capturing the innocence of the cubs, snapping frames as they pawed at a fallen branch, ears twitching at every sound. He murmured softly, "Easy now, little ones," not realizing that every movement he made was being noted by the adult lioness. She stepped closer, her body low, tail swishing with measured patience. The scent of her presence was faint, carried on the warm breeze that ruffled the grass, but it went unnoticed. Every instinct in her being was attuned to protect. The cubs had ventured beyond the immediate shelter of the den, and while their curiosity was endearing, it left them exposed. The lioness had watched over them for hours, her eyes tracking their every step with silent intensity. Her gaze shifted briefly toward the photographer, analyzing, assessing, a potential threat or harmless observer. She paused, muscles tense, ready to act if needed, but patience held her restraint. The air carried the soft hum of insects and distant calls of birds, masking her approach. The photographer adjusted his lens, crouched low to the earth, unaware that a presence far more powerful than he imagined had entered the scene. The lioness's breathing was calm, measured as she moved with precise steps, each pawfall silent on the dry savanna soil. She circled closer, her gaze unwavering, watching the cubs and the man simultaneously, weighing the moment. The cubs, oblivious to her presence, continued to investigate the fallen branch, pawing and nuzzling it as if it were a new toy. Occasionally one would pause, ears flicking, but the rustle of the grass behind them went unnoticed. The lioness crouched low again, lowering her body closer to the ground, her movements deliberate and careful. The photographer clicked another frame, satisfied with the angle, still unaware of the danger that lingered just behind him. The lioness poised in silent anticipation. She paused once more, nostrils flaring softly, assessing the air for sense of danger or disruption. Her decision hung in the delicate balance between caution and instinct. Time seemed to slow as she remained motionless, body coiled, eyes focused, preparing for whatever the next moment demanded. The photographer continued his work, humming softly to himself, entirely oblivious to the shadow just a few feet behind him. The lioness poised in silent anticipation. The lioness remained still, letting the wind carry her presence subtly across the clearing. She moved with measured care, each step deliberate, ensuring the cubs remained safe while the man stayed unaware of her proximity. Her eyes tracked the smallest twitch, the slightest movement, reacting to threats before they fully materialized. Her gaze never wavered from the cubs, watching them as they explored, learning the first lessons of the savannah under her watchful eye. The photographer crouched further, clicking rapidly, completely absorbed in capturing the cubs' playful antics. The rustle of leaves and soft snapping of twigs beneath his feet was barely audible, but to the lioness it was clear and precise. Every sound, every scent carried meaning. She shifted slightly, lowering herself closer to the ground, remaining hidden yet fully aware. Her presence was subtle, a gentle yet commanding force of nature. Every muscle in her body remained coiled, not in aggression but in readiness. The cubs pawed at the grass, sniffing the ground, tumbling over each other with innocent clumsiness while she moved silently around them, a protective circle unseen by the human. The photographer crouched to capture a close-up, whispering softly, "Just a little closer." He leaned forward, stepping lightly, not noticing the lioness aligning herself directly behind him, her presence masked by tall grass and the dappled sunlight. She didn't advance aggressively. Instead, she exuded patience, her eyes following the man, tracking his every move. The wind shifted, carrying faint sense of distant prey, of the earth, of the cubs. She paused, tilting her head slightly, calculating the perfect timing. The cubs' laughter-like calls filled the air, a sound of life and innocence. Yet the lioness remained a silent guardian, aware that the slightest misstep by the photographer could ripple through the delicate balance of safety she maintained. Minutes stretched quietly. The photographer adjusted his lens again, moving closer to the cubs. The lioness mirrored the movements with caution, neither retreating nor attacking, holding her position with a quiet resolve. Her patience was immense, a demonstration of instinctual control. She let the man believe he had the moment all to himself, while she ensured no harm would come to her young. In this delicate dance, the savannah itself seemed to hold its breath. The sun dipped lower, casting long shadows across the clearing, highlighting the cubs' playful forms while masking the powerful predator nearby. Every fiber of her being remained attuned, a balance of strength, caution, and maternal care. The photographer was unaware, yet she allowed the moment to continue, her presence a quiet, protective force waiting for the right instant to reveal itself. Suddenly, as the photographer leaned over to adjust a camera angle, the lioness moved with unexpected speed and precision. She approached from behind, her body fluid, controlled, yet without aggression. The cubs paused, glancing toward her, and the man froze, instinctively sensing something extraordinary. She stopped just behind him, her massive head close but not touching. Her eyes locked on the cubs rather than the man. Then, in a motion both shocking and intimate, she nudged the man lightly with her shoulder, not in menace but as a subtle warning and acknowledgement. It was as if she had allowed him into her world, tested his intentions, and given silent approval. The photographer, heart racing, barely breathed, frozen in awe at the realization that the protective mother had orchestrated this encounter with the precision of instinct. The cubs, reassured by their mother's presence, returned to play, tumbling over the grass with renewed energy. The lioness stayed momentarily, observing both her cubs and the man. There was no attack, no fear-driven flight, only a deliberate, controlled gesture that conveyed trust, authority, and maternal care all at once. The photographer whispered softly, I didn't know, but the words barely reached the air, swallowed by the enormity of the moment. After a heartbeat, the lioness turned, moving back toward her cubs, her presence still commanding the clearing. The photographer remained still, every nerve alive with respect and astonishment. He realized he had witnessed a rare balance of nature, raw power, instinct, and trust all revealed in one simple, shocking act. The sun dipped lower behind the acacia trees, casting long golden shadows over the scene. The lioness gathered her cubs and led them back toward the sheltering grass, their forms blending with the warmth of evening light. The photographer lowered his camera slowly, carrying the memory of her trust and precision, understanding that some lessons in the wild were not learned through words but through observation, patience, and the quiet acknowledgement of another life. The clearing returned to its calm, filled only with the soft whispers of wind through the savannah grass, the memory of the shocking gesture lingering in the hearts of the man who had, for a brief moment, shared in the secret rhythm of a mother's protective care.